I broke up with my boyfriend just before we were set to move in together. After a day of apartment hunting, I ended up sobbing in my car, and his mom even chased me down the street when I left. I'm 22 and my boyfriend is 23. We've been together for 8 years, having met in high school, and our relationship has truly flourished. We've grown and changed together in amazing ways. Communication has always been a strong point for us. We've shared countless inside jokes and built a deep comfort with each other. By all accounts, our relationship is wonderful. However, I wouldn't be sharing this if everything was perfect. As we've entered adulthood, I've started asking more significant questions about our future. He's always been against having kids, which is a big deal for me. I first raised these questions after 4 years of dating, asking him about his career aspirations and his personal growth. Whenever we discuss these topics, the conversation often goes quiet. He tends to give short answers or asks for time to think, which has become a familiar pattern for us. Despite our happiness, cuddling, watching Netflix, enjoying romantic dinners, those unanswered questions weigh heavily on my mind. I often wonder why he doesn't engage more deeply with these discussions. Is it wrong that he doesn't ask about my feelings or future in return? After all, we're still young, but we've been together for so long. I've been patient, believing that our relationship's longevity would help us navigate these challenges. This past weekend, however, something shifted. We were looking for places to live together, and after a day of apartment hunting, I broke down in tears. I felt a profound sense of loss. Something in me just snapped. I realized I might need to break up with him. It's not fair to expect him to change, but I've been unhappy with his vague answers and the emotional distance between us. Earlier this year, he expressed that he was open to having kids, which brought me relief. But now I'm questioning if he meant it, or if he just wanted to placate me. He often says I inspire him, and that I'm the best thing in his life. But I wish he had more ambition and positivity. I want him to be more emotionally available, yet I don't know how to address these issues without hurting him. We've been discussing marriage and living together, but this realization has left me feeling lost. I've always trusted my gut, and right now it's telling me to take action. After posting, I took the time to reflect and talk to close friends and family. I realized I couldn't continue feeling the way I had been. So, I decided to initiate a serious conversation with him a day earlier than planned. It was challenging, especially since he had been texting me normally, making it hard to bring up such heavy topics, but I asked him to meet, and he agreed. I went over to his place that morning, ready to confront the issues head-on. After running a few errands with my brother, he drove what he jokingly called the getaway car and promised to pick me up afterward. It was tough to face his family, especially since they were busy decorating the house for Christmas. As soon as I arrived, his mom asked me to help hang some garland on the front porch. My heart was racing as I tried to focus on helping her out. When I finally found a moment to slip away, I walked into the house and spotted him in the kitchen still wearing his pajamas. I suggested we talk in his room, and he agreed. He wrapped me in a hug and rubbed my back, and it took all my strength not to break down right then. We climbed the stairs to his room, and once we were inside, I closed the door and hugged him tightly again. I took a deep breath, sat down cross-legged, and started to speak. I told him I had been in so much pain ever since we returned from looking at places to live together. I explained that I didn't think it was a good idea for us to move in together, and that meant I didn't think we should be together at all. I emphasized that it wasn't his fault. It wasn't about him being wrong in any way. I just felt that something was off in our relationship, and committing to each other wasn't the right choice for me. I admitted that it hit me like a freight train. This decision came on so suddenly. He looked completely shocked and asked why I was doing this, insisting he thought everything was perfect. I told him I wanted to talk it through since we had been together for so long. I made it clear that I wasn't going to change my mind because it felt like the right decision, but I wanted to have an honest conversation. Instead of discussing it, he went to his dresser, changed out of his pajamas, grabbed his backpack, and left the room. I could hear his mom asking for more help with Christmas decorations, but he just walked right past her. Before he left, he casually said, "See you Saturday," since our friends were having a Friendsgiving. That's when the reality of what I had just done hit me like a wave. All the reasons I had for breaking up felt like they vanished, and I was left feeling like the worst person ever. I hurried to put my shoes on and raced down the stairs, ignoring his mom's calls for help, and bolted out the front door. As I walked away from his house, I could hear her footsteps behind me. She called out my name, sounding desperate as if I'd forgotten something important. I didn't turn around. When she called again, I rounded the corner and headed toward the street. I quickly called my brother and asked him to pick me up, and he arrived in no time. The car was still moving when I jumped in, desperate to get away. Once inside, I lost it. I sobbed hard. It felt like my heart was breaking. I couldn't believe I had just ended an 8-year relationship. When I got home, my family was there to comfort me, sharing their own breakup stories and experiences from their first loves. That was Friday. Now, on Monday, I can honestly say it was the right decision for me. After the tears and chaos, I realized I had needed to make that choice for a long time. I feel a sense of relief, like I'm finally ready to embrace whatever comes next. And honestly, I'm a bit shocked by the responses I've received. Thank you to everyone, even those who don't agree with my decision. If I tried to justify myself by sharing every detail of our relationship, I think it would undermine the purpose of reading your honest feedback. I appreciate all the comments and have read through each one. Now, I'm ready to move on to the next chapter. I'm in a tough situation with my girlfriend Laura, who's 22. I thought it would be a good idea for her to hang out with my friends, Shelley and Jake, while I worked late. I arranged for them to pick her up, and I planned to get her after my shift to ensure she didn't drink and drive. I trust them, knowing they can handle their alcohol, so I thought everything would be fine. When I got off work at 2 a.m., I started getting some pretty sloppy texts from Laura, which made me realize she was definitely drunk. When I arrived at their place, I was horrified to find Laura passed out on the floor, and Shelley was on top of her, making out with her while Jake recorded everything on his phone. I freaked out, demanding to know what was happening. I took Jake's phone and deleted the videos. He laughed it off, saying it was just a prank for the morning, something to embarrass Laura when she sobered up. I picked Laura up off the floor, and it was clear she could barely walk. She was constantly throwing up, crying, and couldn't see straight, while my friends were completely sober. I got her home, put her to bed, and then received a text from Shelley saying I shouldn't be mad since it was all a joke. I replied that they had taken advantage of her, and while she somewhat agreed, she insisted it was in a friendly way to help Laura let loose since she always studies. I felt disgusted and didn't respond further. Laura was still sick throughout the night. The next day, she received a bunch of texts from them, angrily berating her for getting them in trouble. They said she was a grown woman and should handle her own mistakes, dismissing my concerns and calling me controlling. If they'd seen how incoherent Laura was, they wouldn't say she pressured anyone into anything. Laura has been in tears all day. Alternating between thinking it's her fault and recognizing their behavior was disgusting. Meanwhile, Jake and Shelley have been spreading rumors, portraying me as jealous and Laura as just a drunk who got herself into this. It's incredibly frustrating and I'm not sure what to do. Am I overreacting or do I have a right to be angry? To clarify, Laura doesn't remember how much she drank before blacking out. She did recall that my friends didn't drink at all, which feels really suspicious. They even admitted they took advantage of her in a friendly way because they wanted her to have fun. After the incident, they kept contacting Laura, blaming her for everything. She admitted to being blackout drunk, and they manipulated that to spin false stories about me, calling me controlling and trying to isolate her. They even brought up my past mistakes to paint me in a bad light. Yes, I had a wild past, including a DUI, but I've changed and genuinely love Laura. Things escalated when they showed up at our house late at night, leaving gifts and trying to talk to her. When her parents found out, they banned Jake and Shelley from their home and threatened to call the police if they showed up again. Laura has been so confused and guilty about the whole situation. Finally, we decided to go to the police and file a report. Although Laura doesn't want to press charges right now, I'm working on helping her regain her self-esteem. The police said she has enough evidence to take action, especially with the texts where they admitted to taking advantage of her. So they mentioned that if Laura decides to press charges, They can actually confiscate the guys' phones and check for the video. I'm not entirely sure how that works, but I'm not going to question it. Laura just wanted to file a report, just to have something on record in case anything happens down the line. She's thinking about getting a restraining order against them. But for now, they've stopped bugging us and have gone completely silent. We've cut off all contact with them and any friends who believe their lies. Laura's been going to therapy and she's slowly coming to terms with the fact that she was sexually assaulted. I sometimes go with her for support. The hardest part for her is shaking off the guilt and not blaming herself. She keeps saying if she hadn't been so drunk, none of this would have happened. I always tell her it's not her fault, but it's a constant struggle for her to believe it. We'll see if she decides to press charges. I can't push her to do anything she's not ready for, but I'm here to back her up no matter what she chooses. Honestly, I still can't wrap my head around all the craziness that went down after that night. I don't get why those guys flipped out, leaving her creepy notes and gifts and even trying to talk to her parents. It's just been a wild ride.